morning from the Center of Light. My name is Jane Wadke, and I'm happy to have you join us today. We're going to begin by dedicating the flames. I dedicate this flame to the Father, the energy of a will. I dedicate this flame to the Son, the energy of love. I dedicate this flame to the Mother, active intelligence. I dedicate this flame to Archangel Raphael, the overseer of the spring season. I dedicate this flame to Archangel Michael, our protector. I dedicate this flame to the Diamond Platinum Ray. I dedicate this flame to the Center of Light in Huntsville and in Australia. And I dedicate this flame to friends and family all over the world. We're going to begin by reading 4 decrees to help us get centered. The first one is the Great Invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Our second decree is called, I am a channel. I am a channel of love, will, and service. I am a gatekeeper of universal energy. I stand with the masters of light against the forces of darkness. Amen. Our next decree is the souls of men. The souls of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life at all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all souls love. And finally, our last one is, It is All Good, by our Reverend Peggy Shanahan. I go to my God to find joy. I go to my soul to feel connected. I go to my mind to find wonder. I go to my heart to love. I go to my body to experience matter. It is all good. It is all God. So we have Reverend Nancy here today with her Sublime Harp music, and she's going to play her Bach Prelude. Thank you, Nancy. That was wonderful. I was raised Catholic, and there was a lot of metaphysics in the church that I was drawn to. There was a heavy emphasis on the saints, and that they were our examples of how to live. Of course, Jesus as well. I was also fascinated about the saints because I wanted to know what it was about them that made them stand out above all the rest. In pictures, Jesus, Mary, and the saints always had this glowing halo around their heads. It wasn't until I learned about Kundalini that I had a hint of what that light could be. Those of us at the center are not strangers to the word. The word Kundalini comes from Hinduism and is described as a divine energy believed to be located at the base of the spine. It's a force or power that is coiled up there like a snake. This energy is also connected to the chakras, which are associated with the endocrine glands in the body. The chakras are lined up with the vertebrae and into the skull. As we become more and more spiritually enlightened, the spiritual energy flows more freely, and when the person is fully awakened, this Kundalini energy is believed to lead to spiritual liberation. I think the halo is symbolic of the uplifted feelings we have when we are exposed to enlightened people's wisdom and energy. A lot of people who have inspired me over the years, I have listened to Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer, to name just a couple who have uplifted me. At Biden's inauguration, Amanda Gorman absolutely stunned me. Her wisdom and poise, in spite of her youth, was just breathtaking to me. Even now, when I just see her picture, I get choked up. I really feel like her light shines brightly, and I'm suspecting her Kundalini is flowing like a cup runneth over. I recently read a book called Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man. It was written by Gopi Krishna. He was raised in the Brahmin caste, and he dutifully meditated. He was a mere lad of 22 when he experienced a powerful Kundalini event. When it happened, he experienced the bliss that is described. In his case, he actually felt an intense heat in his body, and it was as though a light had been turned on inside of him. The experience seemed to expand his view of all that is. He knew something incredible had happened to him, but the next day he felt very ill. He also knew that his thinking was altered in such a way that if he tried to explain it to others, they might think he was mentally ill and lock him up. It was months before he finally got help from a respected guru who told him that his Kundalini was out of balance. He explained that the Pingla, the masculine energy, and the Ida, the feminine energy, were not in sync. He was given some instruction on how to balance the energy, and he did eventually get himself straightened out. His story reminded me of other stories I had heard of where people had opened their chakras too quickly. For example, LSD can open your chakras, but it can also make you go mad. I think his story is an important reminder to anyone who seeks to raise Kundalini that it can be dangerous and needs to be done with patience, and it's not meant to be rushed. In Gopi Krishna's case, he did learn to manage his Kundalini and went on to write many books. This book is obviously about his conviction that raising the Kundalini is the evolutionary plan for mankind. His book tried to implore the medical community to investigate it and help raise people's consciousness about this latent energy that we all have available to us so that we can be so much more than we think we are. Gopi Krishna was born in 1903 and died in 1984. This book describes the variety of experiences he had. When he slept, he stated that he was transported to a fairyland and inexpressible glory unfolded. He wrote several books, and I did read where he could write a lengthy book in an unusually quick amount of time. I think what impressed me most was that his mind expanded. Wisdom just seemed to pour into it. Before his death, he started to research the life of geniuses and enlightened persons in history for clues of Kundalini awakening. He proposed an organization to be erected to conduct scientific research on the matter. The research should consist of research on biological processes in the body, psychological and sociological research of living persons. Mr. Krishna suggested that the lives of historical persons should also be investigated. It's interesting to read about people's enlightening experiences. I remember reading about Eckhart Tolle. He was feeling suicidal, and then he had an awakening, and from that day on, he saw the world in a whole new light. As we know, he writes inspirational literature, but Tolle never talked about having heat in his body and light in his head. Also, I remember reading about David Hawkins. David Hawkins is an authority within the fields of consciousness research and spirituality. He's a clinician, scientist, and mystic. He also had a black night of the soul, sort of like Tolle's, because he was in anguish. He was an atheist, but asked that if there is a God, please help him. The result was his enlightenment that was so profound that he claimed he literally didn't do anything for 6 months. He came to realize that his ego was dissolved, but he was one with all that is. I was noticing how different these people's lives were. Tolle and Hawkins were not spending time in meditation, and yet they had these profound awakenings. Other research I did said that the Buddhists claim there are 7 levels of enlightenment. If that's the case, we all have a lot of work to do. I was going to share information from another book I'm reading about metaphysical interpretation of the Bible by Stephen L. Harefield, PhD. His explanation of the book of Revelation reminds me of a book I read from the Edgar Cayce readings about the true meaning of the book of Revelation. It's interesting that John wrote the book of Revelation 2,000 years ago. I wonder if anyone understood its meaning then. I even wonder if John understood it. I think it was meant to be understood for a future generation, possibly beginning with our generation, because we have people like Edgar Cayce and Dr. Harefield who can flesh out the true meaning. I have to say that I'm terrible at interpreting symbols, and I need smarter people than I to tell me what they mean. I said I was going to share the information with you, but it doesn't really lend itself well to Sunday service. It's best read and studied so it can be digested. I'd be happy to share my notes with you if anyone's interested. But basically the gist of it is that the book of Revelation is not about Armageddon, but rather the battle within our own psyches. The 7 churches described are symbols of the chakras. It describes how mankind will ultimately make its journey to enlightenment and reconciliation with God after overcoming our egos and illusions. We know the Nicene Council took reincarnation out of the Bible. I wonder if they took meditation and Kundalini out of the Bible too, since meditation is the recommended way to raise the Kundalini. I'm not sure the church wanted the people to realize their own power. Those of us born in the West may feel that perhaps we don't have the tools to raise our Kundalini. But I found an interesting internet article that describes 8 signs of Kundalini awakening, and I believe we all will be able to recognize ourselves in these signs. The article starts with, things feel as though they are falling apart. It can look like a midlife crisis or a Saturn return in your astrological chart, where everything you had committed to previously begins to dissolve or be taken away. Certainly COVID-19 has had this effect on the world. Anything of such a magnitude will shake up our spiritual core and creates change in us. There are other disastrous events that we have collectively been affected by. For example, Hurricane Katrina or 9/11. People in all walks of life, affluent or poor, suddenly reverse their daily routines, their way of thinking, and provide whatever assistance they could to the victims of these tragedies. It may appear that once everything died down and the media focused on other, more mundane issues, that more people went back to their old ways. But I would suggest that the Kundalini of the United States group consciousness is forever changed for the better after these events. Number 2 in the article states, physical, emotional, and energetic symptoms. These don't sound like pleasant experiences at all. An example is the neurologist, Eben Alexander, who had meningitis and a near-death experience. The result was that he certainly did have an awakening. Another example is Daniel Brinkley, who was hit by lightning. He suffered physically afterward, but he also had a spiritual awakening. Apparently, any kind of physical or emotional suffering can stimulate the Kundalini. My own mother had ovarian cancer. Her doctors didn't expect her to live. My father was so devastated that he doted on her and demonstrated how desperately he loved her and didn't want to lose her. I sincerely believe that my father's love is what cured her. From my experience growing up with her, she'd been a very disgruntled and discontented woman. The cancer diagnosis seemed to transform her. The doctors did an exploratory surgery on her a year later and found that she was cancer-free. My mother said that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to her. She really did have a spiritual transformation. The negative attitude that I unfortunately grew up around was gone for good. After that, she prayed her rosary every day, and I know she had a new lease on life. She was diagnosed at 58 and lived 34 more years. Number 3 in the article is miracles and synchronicities appear, and you receive support from unexpected places. Once we're ready to try new things, we become available to receive support and miracles from unexpected sources. We meet the right people, attend the right workshop, stumble upon the right book. Whatever we need shows up at the right time in the right way. This happened to me in 1986. I was at a low point, quite upset with God. I had been trying to become a mother for 16 years. I remember asking God why it was He made me this way. I've been wanting to be a mother all my life. To no avail, despite fertility doctors and trying to adopt. My husband wanted me to move to Ohio, from Ohio to New Jersey. For someone in my situation, leaving doctors and adoption possibilities would mean starting all over. But a quiet little voice said, "I want what you want." And shortly after that, I had a dream of a young Asian-looking man who assured me everything would be okay. I recognized that I had a genuine shift in my thinking. That dream was right around Thanksgiving. In March, I moved to New Jersey, and in June, my mother-in-law called. At that time, she worked in a hospital helping low-income pregnant women with their finances. She met a woman who was interested in giving her child up for adoption. In August, I was holding my little baby boy, and that dream was 9 months before he was born. This was my miracle, and I certainly received support from an unexpected place. Also, I never again doubted that God wasn't on my side. 3 years later, in 1990, there was a revolution in Romania. 60 Minutes talked about the orphans all that year. I told my neighbor that if I had a way to overcome the language barrier, I would go. Shortly after that, she called me up. She just saw a local woman on the news who was taking people to Romania to help them adopt. That was in August. I went to Romania and found my daughter in September. I had to come back home to get paperwork together, but I had her by Christmas. Both of my kids are now in their early 30s, but they were definitely meant to be my children. God had a plan for me, but I had to be patient. Number 4 in the article is courage, willingness, and desperation to try new things. People suddenly seek to change their diets, seek out healers, leave relationships, change jobs to respond to what is happening on the inside. This happened to me 5 years ago. My life that I thought was working just fine in New Jersey was starting to not feel right in the spring of 2015. Before then, I had no intention of retiring and moving out of the state. And what state? It just so happened that my daughter was planning to move to Alabama. I felt the universe was pushing me to literally change everything. I was told that Huntsville wasn't a great place to live. My move to Huntsville has been a blessing from the very beginning. Formerly, I was concerned about retirement, but I've not lacked opportunities for learning and making friends. In fact, I can say I have more friends here than anywhere else in my entire life. And now my life looks completely different. I know now that Spirit had other plans for me. Number 5 in the article is increased sensitivity to external things such as food, media, people, and places. Once we make these changes, we can expect to become more sensitive to things that we used to be able to tolerate. We may find that we let go of those things that weren't for our highest benefit. We may find that we give up certain friends for other friends that seem to resonate better with ourselves, our new selves. The nervous system is undergoing changes to be able to handle more energy, and this leads to increased sensitivity. This is a sign of increased awareness and potential. Number 6 in the article is awareness of internal energies, intuition, and inner truth. We begin to have a real relationship with our soul, our inner teacher. What other people say or think about us becomes less important to us. Our inner compass is more reliable and clear. We are more tuned in to our own bodies and what our bodies are telling us. Number 7 in the article is increased compassion, desire to be of service, and recognition of oneness. Once we become more aware of ourselves and who we really are, we become more aware of the world around us. Our energy has healed through the lower chakras, and now we can move into our heart center. Our compassion for ourselves leads to compassion to others. This naturally leads to a desire to help and give to others as we've received help along the way. The age-old truth of interconnectedness of all beings becomes an inner knowing instead of just a thought. And finally, number 8 in the article is sense of purpose and destiny. When we have worked on ourselves to heal our past, when we know the tools to clear the energy in our body on a regular basis, and when we have made a connection to our heart and our soul, we are ready to deliver our destiny. The universe tends to support us in doing this, and it gives us opportunities to share what we have learned and experienced. The point is that Kundalini awakening isn't about being able to see people's auras or have esoteric powers, but to show up and be a steward to our world, to become who we were meant to be, to live in integrity with our own spirit. I hope you'll reflect on these signs and see how they have been working in your life. We're all on a fascinating spiritual journey. At this time, I would like to remind you that the center continues to need your tithes. Please put it in your hands, bless it, and charge it with your love of the Spirit and center of life. We thank you in advance. And now Nancy is going to play the prayer. flames to their source with love and appreciation. May they stay lit in your hearts.